there. Today we want to pivot a little bit from talking about mid-career change and career breaks and focus more at the beginning of career, earlier career, and how to handle interviewing when you're pregnant.
Right. Because that can happen. We do a lot for women who are returning to work after career breaks, but we also do have a spotlight course that talks specifically to women who are preparing for their maternity leave before, during, and after. And there is so much that you can do. You might want to check that out if you fall into that category.
It's
you can
so
find it on our website.
helpful. I mean, we both wished we had something like that when we were navigating it years ago.
But this topic of interviewing actually came up because this was happening for one of our students in our course that we just finished. And in this day and age, you could go. I mean, it's happened with our student who told us she was pregnant.
Yeah.
She went 10 weeks. We had no idea that she was having a child because we're working in the virtual world. Right. And that can happen in work. That can happen, as you're navigating the interviewing process.
Very good likelihood that, especially for a larger organization or more distributed organization, that you will never meet anyone in person until your first, monthly meeting.
Yes.
And you don't want to show up in maternity wear and have them be surprised.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I have to say, Suze, there's something really freeing about that because that was a challenging thing to navigate when you were in the workplace and people speculating and, feeling almost like guilty in a way that I wasn't telling people that I was close to or that I worked with regularly because I wasn't sure yet, was this going to be a viable pregnancy or not? And so having the freedom because of this digital space
to really focus on the work, which is what the interview should be.
Absolutely.
Right. I think I agree. I love the word freeing.
Yes.
Perfect.
So I think though, we need to really start this conversation informing people because they may not know about what your rights are. There are legal rights. So under the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which has been around since the 70s, employers cannot legally discriminate against you for being pregnant. They cannot ask you if you are pregnant. They cannot ask you if you are planning to become pregnant. However, a recent study found that 25% of women had been asked if they have or plan to have children. Okay.
And that number rose to 40% if it were a more senior role. So whether it's legal or not, it's still happening.
Okay, so how do we handle that? Because you want to be prepared for the fact that you might have someone that steps over that boundary. Right?
And they may not even know the boundary's there, which would be hard to believe. But so your instinct may be to say, you know what, Joe? I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that because you're not legally allowed to ask me that question. I'm quite offended because you might feel that way.
Right.
But you're not going to get invited back for another interview.
Right.
So, because Joe's going to feel like, oh my God, she's attacking me, and he's going to feel a sense of shame or whatever. So a better way to handle that, even with similar words, but with a more lightness would be, now, Joe, don't know if you know this, that is not a question you can ask me in an interview. So I'm going to let it pass and we can just move on. Now, if I were pregnant, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
If I were not pregnant, I would just say, now, Joe, you can't ask me that legally, but since you did, I'll tell you I'm not. But I recommend that you don't ask it again because you might have somebody else who doesn't have as good a sense of humor about this as I do. Right. Or something, just to keep it light, but to make sure he's clear that this is not an okay question. Right? So it's illegal also for an employer to make any hiring decision within the context of work based on pregnancy status. So they can't decide to not promote you or not give you a raise. In some states like California, they're legally required to create or to offer accommodations for pregnant women. Anyway, you, on the other hand, have no legal obligation to tell them that you're pregnant either.
Right.
However, we would like to say that you probably do have somewhat of an ethical obligation. So that's where we want to focus today.
The reality is you don't want to begin your working relationship with secrets. You want to have an openness and you want to be able to have dialogue about these really important things. And trust is a critical aspect of a really good functioning working relationship.
And it might feel like a bit of a breach of trust.
Yes.
If you start this relationship really far along in a pregnancy and not disclose
it. Your first in-person meeting with maternity clothes on, and the reality is
and
you haven't shared it with anyone.
Right.
So let's dig into
So let's talk about the timing, because that's key. So you definitely don't want to bring this up on a first interview. First of all, the recruiter isn't in a position to offer you the job.
Right.
So it's not worth having the conversation with that person.
Yes.
And I think it's also just really honest to think about how you would feel. So if we were hiring, and we are a small company, we have 3 employees.
Right.
If we were to be hiring a new employee, and
know that
we knew in the first minute we met them,
right,
that and this is the work that we do, but being really honest, if we knew within the first minute that we met them, and we still have 20 candidates, that they're 7 months pregnant,
right,
we might even subconsciously find a reason not to make them one of the 10 that we bring back, or the 5 that we bring back, right? Because we all want people who are available. And think about it, especially if you're a small team or a small business, that one person being here for 2 months and then gone for at least 4 has a huge impact.
Right.
So you're not going to talk about this early. Really, our opinion is that if you disclose it anytime within the interview process, that's still too early.
Okay.
We don't want to be bringing an objection into the room that doesn't really have to be discussed yet.
And
right?
I want to say something here, because I think there oftentimes, especially for women, there's a guilt.
Yeah.
There's I've got to be a good girl. I've got to, air everything. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. Not at this early stage with these people that you really don't know well yet. And you don't know if you're going to be working with them or not. So really just managing your own mindset around, I have to be the good girl.
That's right. And you can still be good. You're still good.
Yes.
You're not starting a job without telling them, but you're not waiting. You're not telling them during the interview process. The only time you're going to have this conversation is when an offer is made and you're negotiating it.
Yep.
And if you don't know that every job offer should be negotiated, you need to go back and look at some of our earlier material, because we have lots of material talking about negotiating. So let's put it this way. Once you've been offered the job, let's say they interviewed 50 people. Of the 50 people they interviewed, you were their first choice. And because of this, you're now in a position of power.
Right.
You now have them on the hook. You just need to kind of reel it in. So here are kind of the 4 ways to frame how you will tell them in that moment that you're pregnant.
Right. Okay. So number 1 is you're going to lead with gratitude, right? You're going to show them gratitude.
Right. So just maybe say something like, thank you, Kelly. I'm thrilled that you see me as the best candidate to lead the team. And I'm so excited to get to work with them on this new market expansion project. Really thrilled. So that's the first one. Second one,
right, is you're gonna remind them why they chose you.
Right.
So here's why I am your number 1 candidate.
Exactly. So my experience expanding my old company's market from U.S. only to all of North America, it's going to really come in handy here, and I'll be able to apply the lessons I learned and avoid the mistakes that we made, so we can do it even quicker and better than I did before.
Right. And then you're going to tell them that you're pregnant.
So we're going to need to make a small adjustment in the timeline, however, because I'm currently pregnant and I'm due in 3 months. Don't panic, but you need to acknowledge that they're going to panic. So even call it like, I hope you're not going to panic. I feel great. I have tons of energy. If you've been pregnant before, this would be a time to weave in.
Right.
This is my 3rd child. I have easy pregnancies. I'm like ready to go within a few months. If it's not, then you just don't say anything. You just say something like, I have lots of energy. I've already begun working on a plan for the transition in and out and then back into work, which I'm excited to work on with all of you and get your input to perfect it. I understand this may be a bit of a shock, but I love my work. My child arrangements are already set, and I will be ready and excited to return to work after my leave.
And then you want to check in with them because you just dropped a bomb. Yes. Yeah. You just dropped a bomb.
Yeah. So one way to articulate that might be, I hope this doesn't change anything, Kelly. 4 months will be just a blip in what I hope is going to be a really long and fruitful career here on your team and in the greater organization. You made the right decision by choosing me. Yeah. And if we're all set, I'm ready to start tomorrow. I'd really like to get going, especially since I'm going to have a little bit of an interruption.
Right. And this is something that we call in our course a critical conversation. And so if you listened really closely, you might even want to rewind and listen to it again. Yeah. Susan's tone, her delivery, the way that she was doing this, the way that she was empathizing and showing them an understanding. Those were all really important elements to get this point across, and also let them know that we are a team here. This is something that we're working on together, because there is a real important reason why I'm your number 1 candidate. And we don't want that to be lost. And if for some reason it is something they can't overcome, they've lost nothing. Yeah. They haven't hired you yet.
they can go to any one of the other candidates that came close and hire them. So we don't want you to feel guilty, because if you bring this up earlier, you're going to not get the job.
Right.
You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. And another way to flip it is to say, and then they're not going to have the opportunity to hire someone who's really great.
Yes.
Right. So you're not doing anything wrong. We want to be really clear about that. You're not being dishonest. You're being smart. You're being strategic.
Yep.
Right.
And another thing to keep in mind, if they decide to not go with you, or if this becomes an obstacle that can't be something that they can overcome, then it wasn't meant for you. Then it wasn't meant for you.
That's
and
right.
There is something better and greater for you out there.
That's right.
And you just don't know what that is yet.
And you, if you've made it to this point, are their favorite candidates. So remember that. They may need a minute.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, they're going to stick with you.
Exactly. So there you have it. How to let people know during the interview process that you are pregnant. If you liked what you heard today, you can subscribe. You can also learn more about us and our programming. You can find that maternity leave before, during, and after spotlight course on our website at www.preparetolaunchu.com. Thanks.